Okay, so somehow I managed to upload the entire video without any sound at all. So this is me doing a voiceover, and I'll repost this, which of course you won't know because this will be the original version that you're listening to. God damn it. Anyway, you're going to have the visuals of me doing the workout about 2 hours ago now, and I'm going to talk over it and try to remember what exactly it is I'm talking about. In brief, this is week 2, day 1 of the How to Train block. The idea of this program is that it's for a beginner or a returner to exercise, and you can start with the minimal of effort and the minimal of equipment. We're using just one kettlebell for the time being, and still make genuinely good progression. There's lots of information in the drop-down bar underneath the video on YouTube, which explains the rules of 5, and there are videos where I whiffle on endlessly about all that as well. I'm demonstrating some new techniques because we're into week 2. We're going to progress things ever so slightly. The front squat, the squat we've been doing is a goblet squat, and we're going to change the goblet squat to a kettlebell front squat. And the row that we've been doing has been a bench row or a kneeling row, and we're going to do that as a floor row. We're going to be standing up instead. So what we're going to do is make sure that you've got some water, make sure you've got some space, and we're going to get ourselves warmed up. As always, the warm-up starts from the top of the body all the way down. Oh, look, there's Zoe. And it's going to be necks, curls, backwards and forwards, chin to chest, and then head back. You want to go to a full range of motion, but you don't want to force it. Anywhere between 10 and 25 reps is absolutely fine. Once you've done 10 of those, we're going to go to head turns, looking left and right. And again, full range of motion without forcing it, just looking left and looking right. And then head side to sides. My head movement side to side here is fairly poor. I was in a couple of traffic accidents, and it meant my neck has seized up a little bit. It doesn't give me any pain, it just doesn't work that well. And what we've got now is some very slow neck circles. Start with your chin on your chest, and then you're going to just describe a big circle with your head. You're going to do this very slowly. You don't want to go fast with windmilling your head around. You'll just grind your vertebra down to nothing. But done nice and slow using muscles, it's absolutely fine, safe, and in fact, very good for you to do to increase that range of motion. Onto shoulder rolls. So big rolls of the shoulder. Make sure you shrug your shoulders all the way to the top, and on the back part, squeeze your shoulder blades together and then depress the shoulder blades. Not by telling them sad stories, but just by pulling them down all the way. On the warm-up stuff, you want to start at a relatively slow pace and increase to as fast as you can, just to create some heat, some friction, and get everything warmed up. The warm-up that we're doing is based on somebody called Pavel Satsulin, a Russian psychopath, who's got a great book called Super Joints, and it's more to do with the joints, warming up the joints themselves. The joints have got a fluid inside of them, which is called synovial fluid, which acts as a lubricant to the joint itself, but it also contains some interesting chemicals that help nourish the head of the cartilage. So by warming up the joint, you actually can help increase the health of your cartilage. So all of these movements are based on using the joints. And here we're obviously working the shoulders, which then has the added benefit of stretching out the pecs, the chest muscles, and the bicep muscles as well. Not to mention a lot of mobility work for your upper back, your scapula. Again, about 10 of these. I think I'm showing off on this one. So it's going to be arm circles. One arm's going forward and one arm's going backwards. You absolutely don't need to do this. It's just a way to be able to add a little bit of variety to your arm circles. You could circle, of course, in the same direction at the same time and then just reverse it. But here I've got one arm going forwards and one arm going backwards. So a nice little thing to sort of practice some coordination. Elbow circles now. Whipping the arms around, warming up the elbows. Some in one direction and then some in the other direction. And then we're going to do some wrist circles. Again, wrist circles one way, wrist circles the other way. This next exercise, although it looks ridiculous, is brilliant for the forearms and the wrists. So if you suffer from things like carpal tunnel syndrome, this is a nice way to get some movement into there and maybe create a little bit of space into the joint. It will not heal your carpal tunnel at all, but it might help prevent it. So we've got some side bends again here. When you do side bends, make sure that your butt muscles are squeezed as tight as you can. So you're squeezing that and you're keeping that butt muscle engaged, and that means that when you then do your side bend, you're twisting from the thoracic part of your spine, your mid-spine, rather than the lower part of your spine or the lumbar spine. Here we're adding a little extra element of difficulty by bringing your hand over the top as you stretch, and then this will start to stretch in the muscles that are in between the ribs, which are called intercostals, and the serratus. Also, it's going to start to stretch into the lat and a bit more shoulder work. We've got our twists now. So this has rapidly become one of my favorite exercises. We're making sure the head, the shoulders, the chest, the waist, the hips, and the knees are twisting, and I'm flinging my arms nice and wide, looking in the direction of my lead hand. We do X amount of these, and then we're going to add a foot twist into it to make it a full body rotation exercise, and the entire body's moving at the same time. Fantastic crossover to pretty much every sport that matters. Hip circles now. Little tiny hip circles to begin with. Rolling at the hips in one direction and then rolling around the hips in the other direction. About 10 each way. And then we're going to describe a bigger circle. So we're going to do a bigger circle then, which then involves some body roll to get the roll into the body as well. There we go. Nice roll through the body. That's good. So this starts then, as well as warming up the hips, it brings the glutes, the hamstrings, the lower back, and all the muscles, the little tiny muscles that run through the hips and the pelvis. You've got things like the psoas, the gracilis, the piriformis, and they're all kind of hip flexors, extenders, and adductors and abductors. Small muscles, but when they get stiff and tight, they can't half make your life miserable. So keeping those limbered up and loosened is a good thing. We've got our 1980s aerobic leg curls right now. Gets the quad stretched, gets the hamstrings warmed up, starts to get the knee warmed up, and then we've got marching on the spot. This is a fabulous exercise. You could do this as your cardio and you wouldn't be doing anything wrong at all. This is a really good way to get a lot of work in through your entire body at the same time. The high knee stretches out and opens up the hips and the hip flexor. You've got hip extension and hip flexion going on. Every time you bring the knee forward of the body, you're also working your lower abdominals. With the arms swinging as well, you're starting to get some rotation, anti-rotation stuff. Heart rate's going up a bit further now. There's Max in the background this time. Bouncing up and down the spot. Some jumping jacks. So we'll start with the neck. And right now, all the movements on the ankles and the calves and the feet. I'm doing this with my shoes on, but sometimes I do this bare feet just to make my feet work a little bit harder. Change the exercise from a jumping jack to, I think this is called a spotty dog. I can't remember, but feet backwards and forwards. We've added a punch there just to help take your heart rate up. Kick out your feet, shake out your hands, and I think now we're ready to start to do the weights. I'm going to demonstrate how to pick the weight up safely. So we've done this a couple of times, but now remember we're going to be doing this with just one hand. So I'm going to take a grip on it. My feet are shoulder width or slightly wider apart. I'm going to bend my knees I've got a waffle on, obviously. There we go. Play my trousers, get myself ready. Bend the knees. Now send the hips back as far as I can. And there's Jocelyn. My God, the entire family's joining in. So I'm sending hips back and put my belly between my knees, and my head and my chest are pointing at the kettlebell. Take a grip, tilt it towards me slightly, and then swing back, hike my thumb up to my bum, and then we're going to quickly try to do the zip up on your jacket to safely and effectively clean the weight up. There we go. So my fists under my chin and my arms are glued to my side. My arm's out on an angle, but you want to try to get yours a bit more vertical than mine. I've just got a bit too much bulk in the upper body. The other arm comes across just to help stabilize and cradle it, because as we squat, we do lean forward and the kettlebell will actually just slip loose. We want the resistance, and the resistance, of course, is actually slightly asymmetrical. So I've got a little bit of asymmetry happening here with the weight loading, which is an interesting thing that happens with your core. 5 reps there, and now we're going to change hands. So on this, we're going to be doing 4 sets of 5 reps, whereas in previous last week's routines, we were doing 3 sets of 5. So it's 4 sets of 5, so we get an equal amount of work done on each side. This time grabbing with the left hand, bend the knees, hinge the hips, belly down, swing it up, do up the zip on your jumper, cradle the kettlebell, fist under your chin, and we squat again. So you can see that definitely that weight is on the left side of my body. So there's an asymmetric loading of the legs, which has some benefits, it really does. And 5 reps. That's good. And then we're going to go up. Well, I'm going to go up. You don't have to do an increase in weight at all. That's up to you. But remember, the most benefit you can get out of any change in a program is adding load. So if you can, try to go a little bit heavier. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes if you do, your technique breaks down, in which case that is a clear sign that you're going a bit too heavy and you should back off. But if you can increase anything, increase the weight. Not the reps, not the sets, not the amount of time spent doing the thing. Just increase the weight of the thing that you're trying to lift. It's the one thing you can do that will give you the biggest benefit of everything else. So I've gone up a weight here, got 24, which if you were talking about a barbell lift, 24 kilos is ever so slightly heavier than an empty bar. But this is different. It's a different sort of squat. And we're trying to learn the correct mechanics of how to squat properly. So I'm starting to come down. This is actually deeper than I was doing last week. So doing these workouts 3 times a week has had some benefit to me already. And I've been training for about 36, 37 years. So clean it up, get into position, squat on down. And as I squat, I'm pushing my knees out slightly. And I'm trying to hit about a parallel depth there. That's good. That's definitely a bit lower than last time, which is great. Good. It isn't a competition to see how low you can go. It's all about trying to maintain perfect technique. So that's our squats done. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to our bend exercise or our hinge exercise. And this will, in time, evolve to become something of the deadlift family. But for now, we're going to be doing it as the kettlebell swing. Kettlebell swings are great. You need a modest weight. And it trains pretty much all the muscles in your body, and in an explosive, well, certainly a dynamic way. It can be borderline explosive. So it's great for learning how to use your hips as much as you can. What am I babbling on about now? Something about holding a kettlebell. Oh yes, I remember now. The reason we're switching to the kettlebell front squat is that ultimately it allows us to be able to add more weight. With the goblet squat, the limit's going to become what your biceps can hold on to, not what your legs can do. We're changing to a kettlebell front squat. We can go heavier because we're not having to just hold the weight in place. It can just sit there on our forearms. So kettlebell swings. The setup starts exactly the same as your goblet squat, with maybe your feet a touch wider. Bend your knees, hinge the hips, drop your belly between your knees, chest pointing down at the floor, eyes and chest facing the kettlebell. Grab hold of the kettlebell, tilt it towards you slightly, and then hike back powerfully. And then drive through the hips. At the top, breathe out sharply with a sound, and squeeze your butt as hard as you can. So really try to squeeze your bum muscles at the top. We've got 3 sets of 10. And if you have the opportunity and the ability and the confidence, by all means go heavier. If you haven't got a range of kettlebells, and at the moment it's difficult to get hold of more, that will resolve itself. Supply and demand, the basic laws of economics will make sure that eventually the supply meets the demand. And what's going to happen in approximately 6 months' time, once we're out of lockdown, quarantine, is the market will actually be flooded with cheap second-hand gym equipment as everybody kind of starts to get back to normal. Plus, it won't be long before the gyms are back open. And I think a lot of personal trainers, myself included, are starting to do a little bit of work now. So maybe you can get some coaching from somebody. Second set, I've gone up a weight to the 28, which means I have got to bring that weight up to the same height, is I need a lot more extra force to generate through my hips to be able to drive that weight up. Although a 24 kilogram kettlebell and a 28 kilogram kettlebell has only 4 extra kilos of mass, it requires a lot more force to be able to accelerate that weight at the same rate. So the jump ups in weight, although are relatively small, 4 kilos typically, it really makes a difference when you start to power into it. With any of this stuff, you can rest as much as you want to. So by all means, pause the video, have a drink, catch your breath, and then when you're ready, come back into it. There's nothing wrong with going heavier. There's nothing wrong with sticking with the same weight. There's nothing wrong with aggressing it and going lighter. You just work at your own pace. Don't let anyone else try to determine how hard you should be working. Put it up if you can, and if you can't, maybe we put it up next time, or the time after that, or in a month's time. It doesn't matter. So here we go, last set. On the 32, big old red ones. This time again, we need more force generated at the bottom to try to make sure that that weight is driven up to the same height. Okay, 3 sets of 10 done. So although we've done just a bit of mobility, a few squats and a few swings, you can definitely see the sweat marks on my t-shirt. I mean, I sweat real easy anyway, and it is hot here in the UK at the moment. So the sweat's going to show quite freely. But even though we're doing strength work and at squats and swings, my heart rate is getting these regular spikes of work. And if you're in the gym and you're doing bouts of hard activity followed by bouts of rest and recovery, you'd call it interval training. And genuinely, this kind of strength training with the kettlebell is interval training, which is about one of the best ways there is to increase your fitness. So here we go. Shoulder press now, exercise number 3. I'm poking my bum because I like it. Also, to keep that muscle nice and tight. I'm also demonstrating that at the top you must shrug up and try to reach up that extra inch. We're trying to bring the bicep all the way to the ear. Keep your abs tight, keep your bum tight. Breathe out at the top of the rep. You're not breathing during repetitions. You're breathing at the start or the end of the repetition. During the rep, you don't breathe at all. You hold your breath. That's important. Left side, which is weaker. I feel it's catching up a little bit at the moment by doing these workouts. But yeah, my right side is definitely more dominant. It's got a slightly better mobility. There's a bit more of a gap between my left bicep and my left ear than there is my right bicep. Excuse me, and my right ear. So I'm taking a rest and I'm grabbing, this is a 12 kilo one, and I'm just sort of talking about there are different methods to do shoulder press. One is as a strict shoulder press, and then one is as a push press where you dip and you punch up and you use your legs to help initiate drive from the bottom of the movement. It does allow you to use more weight, but proceed with caution. If what you're trying to do is make your body stronger and your body's one unit, I don't think push press helps your strict press strength much at all. Whereas if you work on your strict press, it always helps your push press. I think push press becomes a full body technique where you can not cheat, but sort of jerk the weight up and just kind of catch it right. I don't think your shoulder press muscles, your deltoids and your triceps get any stronger because of it. I personally prefer the strict press. I think it's a much more beneficial exercise. The push press has its uses, but I don't think it's something you want to sort of train. So here we are going up to the 28. So abs tight, bum tight, deep breath, hold it, and press. Yeah. So as I'm looking at this, there's very little in the way of daylight between, at the top, my right bicep and my right ear. 5. There we go. Whereas on my left side, I didn't have this kettlebell quite in the right place, so it was a bit uncomfortable on my wrist. I managed to get that better on the third set. Yeah, there's definitely a bit more of a gap between my left bicep and my left ear than my right side. And that means I need to shrug up more at the top. I need to really try to close that gap and shrug at the top. There we go, it's getting heavy. A little pause there and to adjust my wrist because it was just a bit painful. And then last rep and ooh, barely got that. Yeah, okay. That's about my working weight at the moment on my left side. Cool. We've got one more set of this. You can increase the weight. You can use the same weight or you can decrease the weight. That's up to you. Make sure you stay hydrated throughout. Typically, an hour of exercise will deplete you of at least a litre of water. And if it's hard cardiovascular constant exercise, it's probably closer to 2 litres. If it's outside in sunlight, you'll lose about a litre of water an hour as well. So if you're exercising in strong sunlight, you could be losing up to 2-3 litres of fluid every hour. So you've got to make sure you replenish that. Hydrate constantly. Okay. I'm obviously blathering here to put off having to do my last set of shoulder press because that second set was quite tough. And again, you need to rest. If it's heavy, if it's genuinely a struggle to get that weight up, then you definitely need a longer rest. Okay. God only knows what I'm talking about here. But it looks like I'm finally going to stop blathering and get ready for the next set. Third and final set on the shoulder press. Pressing it straight up. And there's no daylight between my bicep and my ear, so that's great. Good, 5 reps. And then on the left side, I definitely got my hand into a slightly better position this time, so it wasn't as bad on my wrist. There we go. It's definitely a gap there, isn't there? There we go. You can definitely see some daylight between my shoulder and my ear on my left side. So that's something I consciously need to work on. I need to be able to shrug that weight up and close that gap between bicep and ear. 5 reps. The last 2 were slightly better. Slightly smaller gap. Maybe I should just get bigger ears. Maybe that will help. Okay, so we've done the squat. We've done the swing. We've done the press. It's now time to do some rows. And this is another exercise, the second exercise in today's program. That's going to be a little bit different. So we're doing it. We're either kneeling on a bench, or I was kneeling on the sleepers outside. Or you could get into this split stance here, rest your elbow onto your knee and row. So you're kind of using yourself as support. What we're doing this exercise is we're going to be just holding a stress position. So I'm going to hinge down as if I'm about to do a kettlebell swing, about to sort of initiate that movement. Knees bent, stick your bum out, push your belly between your knees, stay nice and tight, eyes and chest pointing down towards the kettlebell, and then I'm going to take it in one hand and grip it hard, squeeze that kettlebell, and then drive my elbow backwards like I'm trying to elbow somebody in the ribs who stood a bit too close behind me. My bum's sticking out, my back's nice and flat, my lower back that is. And the other arm, the arm that you're not using, is out of the way somewhere. Okay, I've put my arm on my chest here, and I'm driving back with the elbow, but I'm not standing up. So I don't want to add any hip extension. I want all arms. My head stays more or less still, and I'm swapping arms each time. 10 reps in total, 5 each side, and I'm powering my elbow backwards, but the rest of my body isn't moving that much at all. There's not much in the way of head movement, bobbing up and down. My chest's not coming up and down. I'm staying at that same kind of angle relative to the floor. That was the side view. We're going to go front view now. Adjust the weights to suit. Because this is a variation of what we did before, so it's a new exercise. I'm going to do it all with just the 24 today. And maybe adjust that weight throughout the week, see how everything all goes. It's important to add weight, but not at the risk of your technique breaking down. Okay, doing it right is more important than doing it heavy. Doing it right and heavy is the secret to success. Here we go again. Bend the knees, stick out your bum, drop your belly between your knees. Your eyes, head and chest are pointing at the kettlebell. Your other arm's out the way, so I'm not using it as a brace against my legs. And row. So again, there's minimal rotation, there's some, but there's minimal rotation through my trunk, and my head doesn't come up too far. So I'm trying to keep the movement to my forearm, elbow, and upper arm moving straight back, like I'm trying to elbow somebody in the ribs. This is a great exercise to develop core strength and to get strong and comfortable in that position of being bent over. So your hamstrings and your glutes and your abs and your lower back work hard just by holding this position, let alone then having to throw around a weight. Last set. That's good. So when I was doing these, I could again feel the difference between my right side and my left side. My right side is definitely stronger and more dominant, which is completely normal. When you're training asymmetrically or unilaterally, so one arm then another, it's important, I think, there's lots of different ways to do this, but I think the best thing to do is to do your dominant side first, so my right side. And I do the sets and the reps and the weights that I'm supposed to, and then I just ensure that my left side does exactly the same thing. I've got to make sure that my left side does the same weight with the same reps and the same sets that my right side does, just to try to make sure that they are equal in strength and therefore size as possible, so I don't have any imbalances. I won't be necessarily able to do all the sets and reps with the same weight in one go with my weaker side. I might need to break it up. So this is the point where I'm doing planks now, into our last exercise, 3 reps to 30 seconds approximately, and if I remember correctly, this is where I got a good tongue stropping from the dog, because it was all sweaty. I think he just liked licking all the salt off me, which was distracting to say the least, and disgusting because I'm now covered in dog slobber. When you're planking, remember to squeeze your butt muscles as hard as you can, and although my elbows are resting on the floor with my forearms, I'm trying to push against the floor, which then sort of spreads my upper back. I'm holding that for 30 seconds, give or take. And we've got 3 sets of this with some dog lick on some, if not all, of the next subsequent sets. He's a horrible dog. So with the plank, there's ways to make it harder, but there's no point making it harder unless you are already squeezing your butt and your fists as hard as you can. But if you then want to make it a bit harder, once you're into a good solid plank position, if I then squeeze my thigh muscles and try to drag my elbows down on the floor towards my feet, it's important that the elbows don't move, but I'm putting force in that direction to make my abs work harder. Done this way, which is sometimes called a hard style plank, it's a great way to increase the effectiveness of this exercise. So again, another 30 seconds, another thorough tongue stropping by the horrible dog. We rest and we've got 1 more set. There are lots of plank variations, and over the coming weeks we will cover some of those. I think last week we did toe tap planks, which is fine. You get a little bit of asymmetry, you get a little bit of extra work, but it's just a variation. The main thing is being able to hold a proper plank and putting your body into the correct position, so the hips are extended, the glutes are tight, your quads are braced, your head's in a neutral position, and that pulling down of the elbows is very, very important to do. Okay, there we go. That's the last plank. What we have now is a pausing of the festivities and then heading outside to do some cardio. Now,
so I moved outside.
I'm guessing that there's no sound on this as well, so I'm just going to keep talking.
To skip on them,
This is a really effective cardio workout. We've got 2 exercises today. We're going to do skipping and we're going to do kettlebell swings. So swings are already in our program.
So today,
but what we're going to do now is we're going to change it from a strength exercise into a more muscular endurance cardio exercise by simply adding more reps. If you do this, it's important that you decrease the weight as well. So I'm dropping down from a 32 that I worked up to a 20 kilo kettlebell, which, if I'm honest, was a little bit on the light side. I could have pushed it a little bit harder,
you have a spring in your step and a glint in your eye,
I was expecting to have to talk at the same time.
Do more rounds, do 5 rounds, do 1,000. Don't do 1,000.
Next week, we're going to, or rather, not next week, but next time we train, which will be in 48 hours time, we were going to do the skipping and the swing, and then we're going to add a 3rd exercise. And then on 48 hours after that, we're going to add a 4th exercise to the mix. So we end up doing basically a circuit. In gym speak, 2 exercises done back to back are a superset, 3 exercise back to back is a tricep, and 4 exercises back to back is a lot of exercises, or a circuit. I suppose you call it a quad set. I've heard them called giant sets, but it's just a lot of exercises done as a circuit.
So she might pipe up with the odd little technique thing.
I need a hardish surface to do the skipping on, a trusty skipping rope. Now, I use like a wire skipping rope, and you can just about see it, but when it's spinning, you won't be able to see it at all. It's there, honestly.
I find it easy to count. Okay, 50 swings. Trying to trip myself up in the hose pipe.
You can do this for time. I'm doing it for reps, so I'm going to skip for 50 jumps. There I go.
And do bear in mind, if you don't have a skipping rope, it doesn't matter. Just do the skipping motion.
A skipping rope in perfect harmony.
It's not that important.
Skippity hoppeting away.
And if you take a quick look at Dave's feet,
you want to jump as little as possible, so you're just lifting your toes off the ground long enough to let the rope pass underneath it. I'm not trying to jump to the moon. Grab my 20 kilo kettlebell. We've got 20 swings. So this is a short, fast swing. So I'm trying to shorten the arc of the swing as much as possible by not just letting the kettlebell drop, but I'm actually pulling the kettlebell down and then powering it off my hips. We've got 20 of these, and 20 swings will just take your heart rates to some interesting places all by itself. And then it's onto the skipping. When I threw it down to the floor then, it miraculously had a little knot in it, so I had to undo the knot before getting started on the swings, which gave me a chance to catch my breath a bit.
Do you remember, Hun, when you were little, did your sister have one of those?
I'm doing 3 rounds of this, so 3 rounds of 50 skips and 3 rounds of kettlebell swings, supersetted. You could do more if you wanted to. You could do less if you wanted to. I'm also doing it with a short rest in between each circuit. You could do it with a much longer rest, or you could do it with no rest whatsoever, depending on your incredible fitness. So we obviously got bored of me skipping, and is showing you a picture of the dog
it's a bit hot for black dogs
doing nothing useful at all.
Slowly moving from shady bit to shady
Grab
bit.
my bell, start swinging my bell. 20 swings again. At the top, I'm breathing out with that ush, ush, ush noise to tense my abs. So I'm squeezing my abs by breathing, just breathing out hard like a sneeze. And I'm consciously squeezing my butt muscles, squeezing my bum muscles. And that makes sure that my spine is in a good, safe, strong position, and I'm braced.
Up to eye height. There's no need to go higher than that.
So we've got 20 swings,
and, got the extra
and then
energy.
Into my last round of skipping.
Pull the kettlebell down. Don't just let gravity do all the work for you.
It's quite hard work.
You can get all sorts of ropes, but it doesn't matter.
It's only a 20.
This happens to be a speed rope.
20 reps is
I've got it's called a Muay Thai rope. And it's not even a rope, it's really thick plastic tubing, which is heavy and slow. It drags the air, it's got a high level of air resistance. And it makes it much, much harder to do the skipping. And your forearms and shoulders are just on fire, even after a minute or so of skipping.
Yeah, I can.
I might break that out when I feel like punishing myself in the coming weeks.
But I definitely can.
You could do it
Last
once.
set of swings. There we go. Again, powering through the hips. Knees bend now, and then they lock out straight. Hips go back, and then hips power forwards.
And you need a bit of
Breathing
momentum
in at
with
the
a
bottom
kettlebell.
and exploding with
through it.
that sneeze at the top, that oosh,
Push
oosh
yourself if you can,
sound
and it's not too hot, and you feel in
to
the
tense
mood.
your abs.
And if you don't, just get it done in your own pace. It's all good.
Okay, finishing it off.
Oh. Done. 3
I'm
rounds.
gonna stumble to camera for the last words, which was, good God, that was actually quite a good workout. And I'm seeing funny little colours and stars dancing on my head like rainbows.
Sweat.
That's a good workout.
That was a good workout. I enjoyed it today.
Go lighter.
If you're exercising outside or not, please drink lots of water and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.